Okay, so Alicia Keys is going to be with us for the first 10 minutes, so just bear with us as we get through this. I have a pretty loud voice, so I think you guys are going to hear me over the testing, so I don't think we're going to have any issues there. I'm Jack Scott. Outpost Gray is my YouTube channel and my company that I run on the side. I'm actually a VP for Pearson. It's an education company. It's out of the UK. And I recently took the job about 2 months ago, but one thing before I jumped into that position, I was a consultant and I worked with an immense amount of Generation Z individuals, and we'll talk about what is a Gen Z. But the point of today's talk is to empower you to be able to create a better communication strategy within your organization that touches on all ages, because we're gonna start seeing more Gen Z start coming into the workforce. So, a little bit disclaimer, you guys have seen this before. My goal today is to educate you all on providing a collaborative cybersecurity community, being able to communicate to all ages, understanding how to really communicate with the younger generation, and then being able to apply it. And I created a little video to have a little fun. So laugh if you want. It's okay, you don't. Well, I appreciate your initiative of locking yourself out of all of your devices. This technique doesn't actually thwart attackers. Next time I encourage you, reach out to our security team for help. Inform them of the security attack before you lock yourself out. Hey Bob, thanks so much for meeting with me. This shouldn't take long. I just needed a little bit of clarity on the report that you wrote on the cyber incident. What did you mean when you wrote, cyber attack was fire on my machine? Hi, Stephanie. I understand you clicked on malware thinking it was a trend challenge. While I appreciate your engagement and your enthusiasm, let's prioritize security while avoiding clicking on unfamiliar links to mitigate potential risks. Jessica, regarding the Hold My Firewall app you downloaded, it's important to stick to recommended software. So let's ensure future downloads come from trusted sources within our company. While I appreciate the versatility of the word yeet, let's aim for clarity in our next team meeting. Using terms like implement and execute ensures everyone's on the same page. Hi, Jerry. I see you tweeted about being yeet with how you handled the cyber attack. So that's real life. We see that all the time. We cannot control what Generation Z are putting out there on the internet, but what we can do is educate them so they understand the importance of security. So what is a Gen Z? The Gen Z is an age between 1997 to 2012, so 12-year-old to a 27-year-old. The easiest way for me to remember it is they're younger than me typically. I'm actually a millennial, but I'm an older millennial. If I've got any millennials in here, I feel like most of this room is going to probably be millennials and Gen X's, maybe a couple baby boomers. But the big thing about the younger generation is they're all about the transparency, having fun, being authentic. And then while they're very literate with technology, you're going to see as we go through this, they're actually the most vulnerable age group that we have right now. So talk about digital fluency and then Gen Z. So when you look at this graphic right here, if you notice, the technology dimension of the digital fluency is actually only one small portion. It's that top portion right there, digital foundation. This is where the organization provides the company with the most up-to-date technology, or they're eliminating tech debt, so they're as relevant as possible. But what I want you to pay attention to is all of the other three segments, which are actually the workforce dimensions, part of being digitally fluent. And what we're going to be focusing on today are the two segments on the left-hand side, which is all about digital leadership in the culture. So this is where leadership from the top down creates a collaborative culture for cybersecurity, for technology, for knowledge sharing. And then the other one is the digital workforce TQ. So this right here is all about the enthusiasm about it with the skill sets, and then driving value, but value that everybody can understand, the value of cybersecurity. Because if anybody works at the business unit level, and I have BISOs that work at the business unit level, first thing they want to do is, why do I have to pay attention to security? It's impacting my innovation, right? You've heard that before. It's impacting the speed of delivery. It's impacting us to go first to market. So being able to address all of those will then create digital fluency within your space. This is what I was talking about a little earlier as far as how vulnerable the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs are. So if you actually look, the younger generation is more likely to send money to the lost prince and be catfished. If we've all, I don't think those emails are going out anymore, but remember the lost prince, of like send me money to the lost prince? Well, if you see right there, Gen Zs, millennials, were kind of grouped together. The data has shown that actually Gen Zs are more vulnerable, and it is because they are on the platforms the majority of the time. So it's like they see a text come in from UPS about a package that's supposed to be delivered to their house. I know you guys have seen that. They automatically just assume that this is a legitimate text message because they're on it all day long. Where millennials, maybe this wasn't something, technology wasn't part of our life until after we got out of high school and into college. We're a little bit more reserved. And then the Gen X is definitely reserved. They don't click on anything. I got head shaking over there. They're like, nope, I forward to spam constantly. And then you've got the baby boomers. And actually, shockingly, baby boomers are slightly less vulnerable than the Gen Z and the millennials. And I think that's honestly, because my parents are like in the late 70s, and they're just like, I don't know what that is, so I'm just not gonna click on it. I don't really think they're secure. I think they're more of like, we don't know what it is. We're just not gonna bother with it. So beyond the memes, talking about what is like Gen Z's values. They're all about the memes and the GIFs. Is it GIFs or is it GIFs? Question. So the value that they're looking for is all about authenticity. They want to be part of the social environment. They agree that digital responsibility is individually led as well as organizationally led. They also are all about prioritizing inclusion and diversity in the online communities, and we're seeing that externally presented to us. If you guys have seen all of the protests that are happening on the campuses with various different things, they're all about transparency. Another thing is their perspective is that they actually recognize that there's importance to privacy, and we're seeing that. They want the transparency, but they also want privacy. They want data protection. They want to be protected on the internet. But the thing is they understand there's a risk. They just don't understand the brevity of that risk to themselves, but even more importantly to others, especially within an organization. They don't understand what that ripple effect's gonna look like if they do click on that text that comes in from UPS about a package that's arrived to their house. They think more there's a risk to it, but it's just gonna be impacting them versus the collective organization. So there was some research when I was going through and not only meeting with my Gen Zers and talking to them and actually asking them these questions, but there was also some data out on the internet that I found very interesting on some of the statements that they had said when asked about why they wouldn't engage into cybersecurity. And these were some of the things they said. One thing was, I only do what's easy and effective. I feel like that's not just Gen Z. I feel like that's probably a lot of us. But that really ties into the why. Why are they doing this? But also, we need to make security easy. So you can take this talk outside of just Gen Zs and look at, if we can make it easy and effective for everyone, wouldn't more individuals want to be more secure, want to do cybersecurity? The next was, I don't feel that I need to do them all. So they felt like, well, if I just quit clicking on phishing, I'll be okay. Do I have to do all of these things that I'm being told to do by my cybersecurity team, or can I just pick and choose a couple of things? They don't see that security has a 360 approach to it. Again, why? It's the why. They don't understand the why of needing to do all of the factors. And the last one is, I just didn't realize there were so many cybersecurity behaviors. So understanding the complexity of it, and we'll go through some use cases so you can have a better understanding of what they've done, what companies have done to give and drive better understanding to the younger generation to understand the complexity and the different types of cybersecurity behaviors that are out there. And overall, there was just 60% of the participants didn't have access to cybersecurity training. And that's organizational. It depends if they're entrepreneurs. A lot of these individuals, if you think about it, they may be entrepreneurs. You may be hiring them into your company as maybe a third-party vendor to do your marketing for you, your social media for you. It could be a plethora of things. Making sure that they're doing and they're taking that cybersecurity training seriously is very important. So how do we inspire action? And there are some things, and I had a dinner 2 nights ago with some Gen Zs, and so we'll talk about some of the things that they gave me and some suggestions. But one of the big things for inspiring action is interactive workshops. So we've all done the cybersecurity training, right? And you just click, click, click. Half the time I'm like, why am I even taking this training? It's like Control F12, put in the code, get to the end. If you've ever done that, definitely done that in the military. Just get to the end, take the answers, be done, move on. How many of us actually retain the cybersecurity training that we do? Not many of us. And that's the same with Gen Zs. You have to think too, when you're trying to communicate with them, they're already on information overload. They're on their phones 24/7, and there's actually been a study done that to keep your mind engaged, you need to change the screen, or you need to change when you're looking at something on, say, YouTube or a TikTok every 3 to 5 seconds. And what that means is I could be talking right now doing a video, but I need to stop and go every 3 to 5 seconds. And what that does is a cortisol spike within your mind, within your brain, to re-engage you every 3 to 5 seconds. Why is that important to know? Because Generation Z, that's all they're doing all day long. They're death scrolling on Instagram. They're death scrolling on TikTok. And they're getting a plethora of information. And now what are we going to do? Make them sit down in front of a computer for 2 hours and they have to hit right until they can take a test? It's not going to be effective. It's not effective for most people. And I'm a millennial and I hate taking those things. So we've got to create and facilitate hands-on training. This could be workshops that you're doing. This could be intimate. I'm doing an intimate workshop with some new interns that are coming into to Pearson to work for the company, like creating more of a hands-on atmospheric environment so they are more engaging and entertained as they go through it. The next, speaking of entertainment, you all have probably heard about this, gamified learning. It's a thing that we really need to start adapting. It's more of an engagement environment. You're gamifying it, so you're making a game out of it. They're gonna enjoy this. Their entire life is technology. And I know that's a hard thing to actually grasp and think about, but they've literally, from the very youngest, depending on the parents and how young I know kids that have phones at 9 years old. They have an entire life and identity within technology, and it's all types of games. So we need to take what they're used to, and we need to be able to apply it for cybersecurity. So gamifying it, leveraging different types of cybersecurity games so they can start to learn and take this seriously. And social media campaigns. This goes into being able to utilize influencers to be able to get your mission or your communication strategy out. And why this is important, I talked with, and I was now to fill you in and give you my story about the dinner I had a couple of nights ago with a whole bunch of Gen Zs. I asked them, I said, cybersecurity is a challenge. You all are entering the workforce, yet you don't take cybersecurity as serious as you need to. How can we help get you more engaged? And across the board at the table, they not only talked about interactive workshops and gamification, but they talked about influencers. And Alicia Keys, for example. So Alicia Keys went on and she posted about and tweeted Twitter. Wow, that shows my age. I don't even use Twitter. So she tweeted on Twitter about a cybersecurity, social engineering event that was happening. More of these Gen Zs are going to take it seriously. And I know that's kind of like, why do we have to get influencers and social media campaigns on board for a communication strategy? And that's outside of your organization because you want to engage them. You want to get them on board. It's not going to work the way that we've been doing it up to this point. Cybersecurity awareness training is not going to work. So how to keep Gen Zs engaged? Going back into the gamification, creating modules, creating interactive environments for them to be able to engage and see what the impacts are going to be when they click on that phishing email. And understanding, because what will happen is when they click on the phishing email, it's not just they're going to receive an email like you do from your IT department of, hey, this was a phishing email, you did not pass this test, and then what happens? You get to go through cybersecurity training. That's not working. So what we've got to do is we've got to be able to take them into a gamified environment so when they click on it, they can actually see what the outcomes are, and then they know what the repercussions are to the organization. Online forums, social media groups, this is a really big area. We are I don't know how all of your organizations run, but every organization I typically go into, you have email and then you have a chat platform. It could be typically Teams is the one that we utilize, but I know there's others that organizations use. We need something a little bit more than that. If you are going to use Teams, then create a social media platform that is fun. Create a hashtag challenge, something like that, that gets them engaged. Give prizes away when somebody identifies a phishing email. What worked really well in one organization is we had an environment that when you were able to actually identify a phishing email, you would upload the picture of the phishing email and you would let us know. And the first person that did that, first person would then get an award, whatever it would be. I mean, it could be as simple as a bag of those little gold fishes that you had, like play a little fun play on words and things like that. But it got people engaged. It got them really wanting to participate in that. Next is, and they're big on this, having a kind of mentorship collaborative environment. We do this at Pearson where we bring interns in and then they have a buddy and then they have a manager that works with them. And usually the manager is an executive or somebody like that to help guide them in their career. You can do something very similar when you're wanting to build out a cybersecurity program for these Gen Zs. They want to be mentored. I noticed that at the mentor dinner a couple of nights ago, they were like hungry to meet with individuals. And from my perspective, I feel like this generation is so intelligent and they want to learn. And I think part of that is because of how connected they are to the internet versus the other generations that we've seen. And then I already talked a little bit about this, about the teams and doing a recognition program, but really establishing a program within your organization. The little things go really, really far. And I know that we don't think so. We don't think that giving away a little, influencer stand, one of those little lights, they're really honestly like $50 packages, sometimes less. You can send these out. One of my last org did this. They would send us out, it was like a media kit as an award. So these prizes don't have to be $200. It can be a $20, $25, $50 gift card to Amazon, $25 gift card to Amazon. Little tiny things that we can do go a long way for recognition. It doesn't just have to be an incentive recognition as like a bonus, something like that. So the little things, get creative, ask your Gen Zs, what would you like to see? And then maybe even create a list or a domain, something where they can win points. And when they get to a certain amount of points, they get 200 points, they get to go into this catalog and then they get to buy something. And it helps with that recognition, wanting to be better at cybersecurity. Gen Z is 3 times more attacked, more targeted, and they're 3 times more susceptible to be breached. And this was an influencer over here, Jana. She was talking about living in Calgary. She was a blogger, a travel blogger, and she was really surprised that Gen Zs are so vulnerable. And what's scary about that, in my opinion, is by 2025, they're going to be a quarter of our population of the workforce, and it's only going to go up from there. I think the age group we looked at was, what, 17, 12 years old? Yeah, it's pretty young. That means from this point on, we're either going to become more secure or less secure within our organization because we're going to get more and more Gen Zs that are coming in there. So if you're not addressing your communication strategy now is the time to make it happen, because in 2026, there's just going to be more Gen Zs and there's going to be more younger generation. And what we're utilizing now isn't going to work. So some use cases that I was able to identify when going through this that I think are extremely helpful for you all to either research, so I've created a link down at the bottom right that you can go into, or just have general awareness around. So this right here is all about utilizing a mobile application for cybersecurity challenges. And what they did here is they had the users be able to go into the application, then navigate around it, so gamifying cybersecurity, and they were actually faced with real-world phishing challenges, real-world malware. They had to circumvent, go around it, and what was great about this is that there was over 100,000 downloads, which is pretty significant, 75% engage rate, and survey showed 50% increase in users' baseline understanding of cybersecurity. That's impressive. Now, it didn't give me the information. I don't remember seeing information as far as the overall like age particular data in there, but this was focused primarily on Gen Z, and the intent was to help educate in cybersecurity. So this is something that you can do in your organization. The cost of the app and the things like this are they're not that significant in my personal opinion, based on your overall budget and the impact to the organization. Securing influencers. So this one right here is a case study where an organization partnered with TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube to publish cybersecurity things like contact information, password security, MFA, and Apache. The individual was posting about the importance of all of these things. And what they noticed is that this influencer, and leveraging these individuals, they were able to reach over 500 million viewers within 3 months, and it showed engagement metrics this included the likes, the share, and the comments out of all of that, which at the end led to another proactive cybersecurity behavior. So I know this is more external facing. What I would encourage you to do if you were going to leverage an influencer to be able to drive your cybersecurity objectives, and I do know there's actually a pretty significant cost when leveraging an influencer. It can be as little as like $500 all the way up to like $50,000 if you're trying to use a Kardashian, for example. So those are all things that you have to keep in mind. But including these into your budget, what I would do as a leader in this space, if I had individuals and I would look at my industry and say, okay, we work in an education industry, so I would find an influencer that talks about education, that is in the industry, that I know that maybe a lot of my influencers are going to follow. I would ask, or not my influencers, my Gen Zs would follow that influencer. I would ask my Gen Zs, the younger gens, of like, who do you follow? Who's a big name in the industry? Who do you like to see? Then I would reach out to the individual and work on creating a campaign at that point in time. This one might be a little hard though. I understand the budget. There are some constraints, and it does cost a lot of money. Another thing with an influencer though, a lot of marketing companies are getting on board, recognizing the importance of influencers, so you can work through a marketing company and then they can push your message out to multiple influencers at one period of time versus trying to target one or maybe two influencers. This one right here is all about escape rooms. Has anybody done an escape room in here before? I actually have never done an escape room. It kind of terrified me getting locked in the room. Yeah, no, but I'll try that one day. But this is the concept of it, is they put you into a room and then you have to figure out your way of getting out of this digital space by like getting code. So escape room, if anybody doesn't know, is you get into a room, it's usually themed based, like Pirates of the Caribbean could be a theme. And based on the theme, you have all of these clues, and the clues are around, I think there's a book on that too, around the book or the movie, and then it can be pretty challenging. And then there are multiple clues, usually 5 to 8 clues, maybe more, and then it gives you the key and you can get out. That's a similar concept here. What they notice is out of thousands of participation in the first few months, pre and post surveys actually showed 60% increase in the ability to identify and respond to basic cybersecurity threats. That's huge, because right now, that response piece, that's being neglected. Like they may be able to identify it, maybe they won't, but they don't know how to respond to it. And that response could be as simple as emailing your phishing team at the SOC, but understanding what are those next steps? What are those next steps if you do click on a malware? Do you log yourself out of all of your computer devices? And I know that was part of my initial video as a joke, but people have done that. They assumed, well, if I just log out of everything, then they won't have access because I don't have access. So educating that it doesn't actually work that way. And it doesn't work that way if you just get yourself offline. Understanding all of those concepts, this walks them through that. Now, the last one we have here is micro-learning campaigns. Are you all familiar with micro-education and how that works? Yeah, we've got a few people that understand that. I love micro-education. That was part of why I actually started my YouTube a few years ago. Ran out of time though, so I don't have time to build all these micro-education courses. But what I felt was really important is, and I started this because podcasts and how many people love podcasts, but then if they're an hour long, it's just hard to listen to something for an hour. It's the same with cybersecurity training. We don't want to sit there for 45 minutes to an hour. So how can we deliver cybersecurity training in small bite-sized forms so they are able to ingest this data? And you do it through micro-learning, micro-education. And they've noticed that these are, and what I'm doing at my organization, this will all be organization dependent, I'm actually building out 15-second and 30-second clips, maybe even 1 minute, to start pushing out data around cybersecurity initiatives that we have within the Office of CISO. It could be as simple as, and not everybody's funny here, I get it, and you're like, I don't want to be doing videos, but I promise you there is somebody in your organization that doesn't mind getting behind a video camera. Engage the younger people in your organization. Say, hey, do you want to do some videos for me? Have them do long form content about talking about cybersecurity. Take the content and then you just break it down into 15, 30-second videos. That's another way that you can do this, and then you push the information out. Another way that you can do this too is you can do long form content. You can push that out, push out videos, because the engagement, my personal opinion, the engagement of newsletters is going away. We're not going to be able to do newsletters because we are all inundated with newsletters coming into our inboxes, right? I personally, if I get a newsletter from a department, I delete it. I really do want to read it, but if I get a video that comes in 30 seconds, 15 seconds, I know most of you are going to at least take a few seconds and click on the video and watch a 15-second video, especially if it's funny and it's something that comes in. So those are some ways. They noticed that video, most of these videos can go like viral within the environment. Some reach millions, including comments and questions within those videos. And they also noticed that the individuals that viewed these videos, they were more likely to change their digital behavior. So there is evidence that this works, even though it might seem a little silly and a little awkward to do videos like that. It does work, and it is the direction that we need to start looking to be able to engage the Gen Zs and millennials, because personally, I would rather do a 15-second video of cybersecurity to keep me abreast of information versus a half-hour video. So what I want to do now in these next 2 slides is provide you all with some strategies, some tips and tricks that you can take away as far as a communication guidebook for your organization. So pro tip on this, I would encourage you, take these tips, take a picture of them, and then customize the Gen Z communication guidebook and align it with your current overall organization guidebook. Everything you're learning here, it's not going to change just by age. Like, it's going to work for the Gen Zs, the millennials, and even the Gen Xs. So the first thing is all about active participation through gamified learning experience in cybersecurity training. So this could also include like that hands-on piece, but getting active participation from the individuals. No more sitting behind the computer and clicking away. I know that there is a certain level of cybersecurity awareness that we need at that level because of cybersecurity insurance companies. They require that type of training. But how do we take a step outside of that to help make this a little bit more fun for them? The next thing is utilizing media platforms for cybersecurity education and awareness campaigns. And this includes TikTok, there's Twitter, you've got LinkedIn. I don't think a lot of Gen Zs are actually on LinkedIn. Facebook, what is Snapchat? I think there's probably some others that I'm probably not even aware of, but staying current with those. I think I've got some Gen Zs in here actually right now. So you can tell me if there's other platforms. They're looking at me like, oh man. Are there other platforms? What other platforms do you use? I did? All right, I got them all covered. If I miss anything, don't be afraid to speak up and let me know. And then the third one is crafting engaging narratives to communicate cybersecurity concepts effective to Gen Z. We can't just be doing the regular cybersecurity training that we've done, copy and paste, making it boring. We've got to be more engaging. We've got to think outside of the box and be inventive and innovative and work with them. I would say bring in the Gen Zs, bring them in and be part of your cybersecurity strategy within the org. Next is creating a Gen Z communication guidebook with key highlights and communication strategies. So sitting down and actually bringing your leaders together and creating a communication strategy with these individuals in mind instead of an afterthought, instead of just staying with the same status quo. This is when I would actually have a committee meeting, have a group of individuals come together, bring in Gen Zs and work with them and sit down and get their thoughts on this. Next is promoting a mentorship program to be able to connect the Gen Zs with other individuals in the organization and other leaders so you can stay connected. And this is not just mentorship for career, but mentorship of knowing what are their challenges, what are they going through, get better connected. And then the last is being able to develop an interactive online resources. So this could be a Teams platform, this could be a SharePoint site, something that there's engagement for them to be able to go to utilize. Why this is important is because Gen Zs are all about the online communities. They have various different online communities that they partake in. When they come to work, they want to be part of a community. I talked about that in the first couple of slides. They're all about authenticity, being part of community. I don't feel like that was so much as a big thing for the older generations. We just kind of went to work and we just did the thing. But think about it, a lot of these individuals, they joined the workforce during COVID. They were at home, so their community was still very much online. Now they're coming into the workforce. They want to still have those connections. They want to still have that engagement. Leverage that to be able to tailor your communication strategy to the Gen Zs. So what is your role in cultivating this new vanguard, these new individuals coming in? And it's understanding, empowering, and collaborating. So understanding what are their needs, what are their behaviors, what are their preferences, how can you meet those preferences, and then how to empower them. At the end of the day, it's really about empowering all of us to be better, secure leaders in this space, because we are the weakest link in the organization. Humans are the weakest link in the organization. So how do we empower one another to be able to support one another, to be able to create a more secure environment? And then being able to create, and I am very much a leader all about collaboration and being transparent. And what I mean by this on the collaboration piece is that have a safe space, and it could be that social media platform, it could be that Teams chat, have a safe space where these individuals and the collective feel safe about bringing issues forward, see something, say something, but allowing them to come forward with the things that they're seeing and not being punished for it, but instead, in a way, being rewarded for it, being appreciated for it, because what that's going to do is you're going to start to cultivate a culture of empowerment and wanting to engage and wanting to communicate out and wanting to secure our environments. And so the last thing, what I would like to see all of you do, if this is something that you know that this is going to be a challenge within your organization, I can tell you it's a challenge in our organization, and I'm already taking a role in doing micro-educations and helping create that strategy for us to communicate better with the entire organization, not Gen Zs. But what you've learned today, you can apply it throughout your entire organization. And so next week, what you should do, in my opinion, is that you should connect with your leadership, your managers, your executive team, and sit down with them and provide them some of this data that you received in this class. Provide them some actionable guidance to be able to help them define or redefine their cybersecurity communication strategy. Look through the phishing data that you have right now within your org. How many people are passing and failing that information? Can you get the age group of who is passing and failing that data? I don't know if we can. I just saw my phishing data come back. We had like 1,400 go out. I think we had a pretty good success rate. I think 70% pass, 80% pass, which is actually pretty good from the ones that I've seen. But my first question was, can we get age demographics in there? Can we get the data of who is not passing? Because that's going to help you with your overall strategy. If the younger generation is actually not clicking on the phishing email and it's the older, then you need to adjust your communication strategy accordingly. So that's what I would do this first week when you get back. I would try to pull that information of your phishing data that you've done, the phishing test that you've done. I would meet with your leadership and I would see how are you doing with your communication strategies right now and how can you refine that and then work on that refinement. And then in the first 3 months following this, what I'd love for you guys to do, and what I would love for you to see, find me on LinkedIn, let me know how it goes, is have a refined internal communication strategy based on this discussion here. Take into consideration the younger generation, their engagement, how to gamify, how to make this fun and enjoyable, because security, unless you're in the security field, it really isn't fun. I think it is, but most people do not think it's fun. And then plan a social event. I really challenge you in the next 3 months, plan a social event, get engaged, engage your Gen Zs, have a fun time, leverage social media. I'd put a Gen Z in charge of your social media because they're gonna know how to engage and how to put information out there. But create a social event, or even do a social media. Maybe you can't do a social event because you're a hybrid team. My team is, but you can maybe do a social media campaign. Get engaged is the point of that second bullet right there. Plan something that you start engaging your community much better. And then the last one, within 6 months, you should drive culture change. So culture change is really hard, I know. I'm trying to do culture change right now, and changing a culture from the inside out is extremely hard, especially when you're trying to tap into a younger generation that maybe you're not well connected with. So drive the culture change, and the way to do that, I believe, is creating a secure and a safe environment to want to have change, to want to be able to speak up. So in 6 months, create a safe space for them, create a Teams chat, create a mentor program, so maybe it's not a collective that they can talk to, but they have an individual they can talk to. Or maybe you could create a committee, or maybe it's a program that you create. We have a Women in Tech program, and men are able to come to it, but it's a collective to talk about what is happening in the organization. Create something that allows that safe and secure space for them to be able to communicate. And that is the end of my presentation. I think so. Yeah, that's a black screen. Okay. All right, 10 minutes, but if you guys have any questions, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. Ron? All right.
Thank you for thought-provoking. I'm one of the older trying to work with the younger generation, and I noticed I sometimes speak a different language. What can I do better to encourage questions? Because I know a lot of Gen Zs, they tend to be a little shy. They sometimes feel more intimidated. So I want to make sure they have that safe space to ask good questions.
I think on that, from my experience, we've got a couple of Gen Zs sitting here. I think the biggest thing is engaging and getting to know them before you have a meeting, before you're setting up to have them ask questions. Get to know them. If I saw you ladies walk in, I would have walked over and introduced myself to make you feel more comfortable, to know that I'm on your team, we're collective, we're here together. I think that's really important. Otherwise, if you're in an environment and you want engagement, just ask them a question directly. Like, I asked you ladies a question directly and you gave me an answer, and I engaged you and you engaged me back. Yeah, don't be afraid to engage them and ask for their opinion. They're very, very bright, some of the brightest. I say engage them, ask them questions. Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Jax, for that really awesome presentation. I am Gen X myself. I live with 2 teenagers who are Gen Z, and they seem to almost want to blow off completely the whole idea that it's even an issue. But one of the things that I was struck by as you were giving your really, really sound and actionable advice, one thing that I don't think was actually spoken about but seems to be the next step is also the user research, the user experience that is possible to grab from like the next step. You know, like if it didn't work, if you did get hooked, so to speak, why? And then if it's a safe space, to use that as a way to like even make the next round more effective, or to speak to that, you know, instead of being punitive. Not that that was a message at all that you sent, but it seems like a lot of times that is the response. It's like wall of shame or punitive, when in fact it could be like, oh, this is interesting. We could use this as feedback. Where did you get tripped up? What would have worked better? Really almost probably for every age group. and I don't know if you had a comment about the user experience or the user research, but the other thing I was going to ask you if you had specific experience with the ambassador kind of aspect, the peer ambassador aspect, but specifically targeted for Gen Zs, kind of like influencers, but more peer. Thanks.
And the peer, so let me follow up on your question
Yeah.
really quick. For the peer influencer question, are you talking within the organization?
Yeah, there are organizations, and they seem to be larger generally, but have like cyber security ambassador.
Yep.
You know, I don't even know if there's a common name for those folks,
Yeah.
but who are really eager and interested, engaged, and act as like brand ambassadors, but for cyber to make it
I love
kind of
that.
cool.
Yeah.
To make it cool, and then they also have to have incentives.
Yep.
Because it takes a certain amount of time to do that too. But I don't know if you've had experience with that targeted specifically to the younger, super skeptical. Like, no, I got that. And even as they're clicking on the UPS link.
Yeah,
You know.
that's UPS link. They almost got me the UPS link because I actually had a UPS package coming, and I was like, wait, is this a real link? That's why I always use that one because it was tricky. That's a really good question. So I don't have experience on the cybersecurity side with the ambassadors. I actually love that idea. We don't have those at my organization. However, I have done things like that within the military, and what we would do, 20 years served, still in the reserves. What I will do is I will find a private. I'm a warrant officer. I'll get a private, and that's somebody that's very young in the military. I will get them to help me they're motivated and they help drive that messaging. It makes it a lot easier because we're talking about younger generation. You guys aren't gonna, you lady, they're gonna leave now. They're like, she keeps pointing at us. You're lovely, I'm so glad you're here, by the way. But it's like, you're not going to want to hear from me, right? You want to hear from somebody of your own age. And it makes more sense to have somebody to be able to drive that message, because in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's going to have a bigger impact. Plus, they're going to have way more energy and motivation than I am to go out there, create the social events, drive that messaging, and also help construct, because I think another piece of that is you need to empower them to be able to go and construct that message in the way that they want to, not me telling them what the message is and then going out there, because now you're like impeding their creativity. But I think it's a great program. I think it would totally work. Yeah. Anybody else?
Two observations, I guess, in Gen Z in terms of other characteristics that can be very positive, but just something to kind of be aware of is immediate gratification and fairness, or the desire for like absolute fairness. What I mean by that is immediate gratification. Think like TikTok. You know, you're getting that wow, that fun factor, and fairness. You know, trying to make sure that regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, etc., that everything is completely fair and that we're being, as a human being, equal to everybody. Just want to get your view, I guess, when you have new generations joining an organization, where there's a period of time where maybe as you're phasing out, you know, older staff or even staff that are not that much older but are more senior and maybe aren't necessarily pulling their weight, and as you have new staff coming in, they perceive this as very unfair, right? Meaning that coming into a new organization, you know, they'll see that they're killing themselves and maybe the person right next to them with the same job title is not, and don't always understand that it may take time to exit somebody and kind of adjust that to create that equality.
So the question is really around that diversity and inclusion piece, knowing that a younger generation is coming in while an older is coming out, and we're going to need change to happen in the org, and how to address kind of those cultural changes while kind of trying to appease everybody.
To set the expectations, essentially, because again, you know, at some point it can be perceived as unfair. I think, you know, some of the older generations, myself included, I would, you know, or kind of I'd consider myself borderline, is you learn to kind of rise from the ranks, pay your dues, all those kind of things that build great work ethic. But when someone comes in which already has amazing enthusiasm and is killing themselves, they may not recognize that there's a duration where you have to kind of like let people rise based on their merits. You can't make certain types of changes immediately. It just takes time, and that kind of goes against the immediate gratification element.
Yeah, and I see that. We have some young individuals in our org that got promoted really quickly, for example, and there are individuals that come in, they expect to be at the director level as soon as they come in because they have a master's or a PhD in cybersecurity, and so they want to get paid at the 5 to 8 year level. That's a tough question, and it's a tough challenge to address, but in my opinion, it's all about humanizing the problem, and what I mean by that is it's all about sitting down and understanding the challenge that you're facing, understand the challenge the individual is facing, and then I think an answer to that could be you partnering up and being a mentor to a Gen Z and being able to communicate and for them to understand what it's like and what they like, creating a career path for them and explaining why they're here now and how they can get to this location. I think it's all going to be about communication. I also think, and this may be a controversial answer, but I think there are going to be hurt feelings along the way. Change is hard. Typically, people don't like change, and you're not going to make everybody happy as part of this, but I think you can attempt to make everybody happy by listening and allowing them to be seen and heard. I think up to this point, we haven't had the pressure to be seen and heard or making sure our employees are seen and heard, but now we have to. The younger generation is forcing us in a lot of ways, I think, to do things better, and that's part of that, and that's part of that inclusion.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Awesome. I think that's it. All right. Thank you all. I really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you.